Hi guys, in this tutorial I'll be showing you a HDR technique known as exposure blending in Photoshop. I'm running Photoshop CS6 here, but any recent versions of Photoshop should be able to do this. So I could use the HDR plugin in Photoshop to produce a HDR image of this scene here, but I want to manually blend it together. So I'll show you how this can be done. So this is shot in Westlake, Hangzhou. It's a sunset scene, and you can see that the dynamic range of the scene far exceeded what my camera could capture with one exposure. As a result, I needed a second exposure just to get the foreground, the sea, and the boats and the hills decently exposed. So the final effect that we're going after looks something like this. This is closer to what my eye saw that day than either of these individual images. So let's get started. Firstly, we need to align and stack up both images together. So drag the two images into a single file, and then just align them together. For best results, you should shoot you should shoot these two pictures using a tripod. Right, so that they're perfectly aligned. I took these handheld, so I have a bit more work to do here to manually align them together. So just reduce the opacity of the top layer until you can actually see through what's below, and then just manually move the layers to align them together to get the perfect alignment. So just preview that on and off. Okay, it isn't perfect here, it's not perfect here. But for the sake of this tutorial, this will do. So what we want to do is to take just the foreground of these of the top layer and to kind of delete away the sky. So we do that using a layer mask. Just hit the layer mask button, and we're going to draw a gradient to kind of mask out the parts of the image that we do not want. So make sure that in the gradient, your color selected are black and white. This is very important. And then just draw a gradient across the horizon of the picture so that it's a very smooth and gradual effect. And there you go. See, I managed to mask out the sky and just leave the bottom half. So there's more work to be done. Now this looks too unrealistic. The water here looks too bright. So I'm gonna make it darker by adding a curves adjustment layer. So curves adjustment layer, just bring down the exposure a bit. And then I'm going to invert the mask, Command or Control I. And I'm going to select a soft brush here. Make sure it's a soft brush. And just paint over the parts of the image where I want this curved layer to be revealed. In this case, just the bottom water. You can see that I've made the water a bit darker. So now the hill area here, the hills and the trees, they are a bit dark, right? Let's make them a bit brighter. So I'll add another curves adjustment layer. This time I'm going to increase the exposure so that I can see a bit of detail in the hills and in the trees in the distance. And then same thing, I'm going to invert the mask and I'm going to take a paint brush, make sure the color is white so that I paint on white to reveal the layer mask. Okay, I'm just going to paint over this part here, which I think should be a bit brighter. If not, the image will look unrealistic. There you go. So again, on and off the layer to preview the edit. This looks fine to me. And here in the sky, the clouds are a bit muted, right? The color of the sunset is a bit muted. I will want to get back a bit more of that color that I saw. So I'm going to add a photo filter, a warming filter, to get more of that orange glow. Just going to up the density a little bit more. And so I only want this layer to be applied to the orange parts of the scene, right? The orange glow there. the sky. So same thing, using a layer mask, invert the layer mask first, and then I'm just going to paint on the parts which I think should be nice and orange. And of course, the reflection on the lake here, reflection on the water, I'm going to paint it in as well. And there you go, I managed to fake a bit of color in there. And this is it. So this is how you do exposure blending manually by kind of merging two layers in Photoshop. So a recap, basically it's all about layer mask and gradients, paintbrush. So this is what we started off with, right? We managed to get the other exposure in the gradient mask cross, and then we made some very minor edits, some finishing touches to make the image more realistic. So I hope this has been helpful for you, and have fun doing exposure blending.